I'd like to welcome everyone today to the regular session of the Opelika Planning Commission. Today's items, some of them have a space for a public hearing. During the public hearing, if you want to speak, you're welcome to. Come to the podium over on your right, and I'll give you 5 minutes to speak. You can come back if it's a different agenda, but on the same agenda, you cannot return to the podium. And I surely appreciate everyone's present. Matt, could you get it started, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you for attending today, and I'd like to thank all the residents for their attendance, or citizens for their attendance today. I wanted to start the meeting today by introducing our new staff member, Clara Barber, who has recently joined us from the library. She'll be taking Ms. Dennis's position as the planning and zoning technician. Rachel has moved up to one of our planner positions, and so we're excited about Ms. Barber starting here today, and you'll be seeing a lot of her in the future. As far as an update on the items on the agenda, you'll notice number C3, National Village, has been withdrawn, and they'll bring that back next month for final plat approval. But I believe the first item on your agenda is the approval of the minutes.
I know, yeah. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
since we have space up here, can we get City Attorney Guy Gunner to move up here to the front in case we need to call on him for something? He's sitting back there in the audience.
Thank you. If he
You
would,
mind doing
I
that,
appreciate
Mr.
it.
Gunner?
Out of sight, out of mind, you know.
No, you're never out of my mind, Guy. And also, Mr. Chairman, I think a moment of silence would be in order for Scott Parker, our city engineer. His wife is in very serious condition at East Alabama Medical Center, and I would appreciate if you wouldn't mind if we had a moment of silence.
That'd be fine. That'd be great.
Yes, sir.
You want me to present it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right now, if you would everyone please bow their heads or have a moment of silence for Scott's wife. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Matt, go ahead and get started on item number 1, please.
I believe first item we need to do is approve the July 28th minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry. Any seconds?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 1 now, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. First item on your agenda is the Lakes at Anderson Road Phase 2, Revision 1. This is a request for a 3-lot subdivision located in the R1 zoning district. Excuse me. The applicant is Keith Maxwell, representing Greg and Stephanie Hill. The property is currently undeveloped. The applicants are requesting preliminary and final plat approval of a 3-lot subdivision, access from Anderson Road. The subdivision would be to sell lots 73B and 73C, which are the two far back lots here, which take access off of 30-foot kind of flags going through the to the front of, and here at Anderson Road. The applicant would retain access of lot 37A, which is 25 acres. This shows joint access for the two flagpoles, or 2 poles, with one shared driveway easement. Staff recommends preliminary and final plat approval subject to the following. The right-of-way, add the right-of-way width for Anderson Road, add the standard Opelika Power easement statement, add the size and type of all the monuments, add the adjacent property owners for lots 35 and 72. add a calculated point symbol for the center of the creeks, where the creeks cross the property line to the east, and also the witness monuments. Change the name of Opelika Light and Power to Opelika Power Services, and change the line weight to the 3 lots so they're clearly identified. The engineering department notes that the comments have been addressed, and they recommend preliminary and final plat approval. The Utilities Board notes that water service is accessible through the right-of-way of Anderson Road, and the Power Services notes this is outside of their power territory. The applicant is here today if you have any questions for him.
Okay. This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioner.
Motion for approval of preliminary and final plat approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 2.
Item 2 is the Chimneys Phase 1. This is a request for preliminary approval, and you've probably recognized this plat. It's been before you a few times. This is a request for preliminary approval at 1009 West Point Parkway. The applicant is Mike Meyer, representing Tiger Town Developers LLC. Currently, the property is undeveloped. It has started some construction, although I think it's started and stopped a couple times due to weather and some other issues. Property is in the R3 and R4 zoning districts. This same plat was approved in July 2018. The infrastructure hasn't been completely approved for them to come back for final plat, and so they're having to come back for preliminary plat as that has previously expired. You'll notice it has 4 lots fronting on West Point Parkway here. Then you have the remaining lots coming back through here. The lots in this phase range in size from 10,840 square feet to 19,546 square feet. This does show adjacent access points to, I believe that's Liz Lynn Street here into Stevens Woods, and then would in future phases have access points to the property to the east. There are some properties up here along the frontage that this will still have to provide access to, parcel B and parcel A, and then the right-of-way right here, right along West Point Parkway. One of those has a cell tower on it, and I believe there's a easement line shown through there. Staff is recommending preliminary approval of this, subject to the following. The adjacent subdivision is named Interstate Cellular Subdivision. Remove parcel B in the name. Add the 10-foot drainage and utility easement for Stevens Wood Phase 4 plat that adjoins the property. Add the zoning boundary line that runs through the subdivision that shows lots in the R3 and R4 zoning districts. Before the application for final plat is submitted, the surveyor will work towards an agreement with Crown Castle and staff for public access to Crown Castle property, adjacent to lots 6 and 7. Install underground utilities and sidewalks on at least one side of all streets. The engineering department notes that this plat meets the requirements for preliminary plat approval and recommends approval. Water Utility Board notes that the water service is accessible to the subdivision by a water main on the right-of-way of Liz Lynn Drive. And then the Opelika Power Services notes the subdivision is in the Opelika Power Services and Tallapoosa River territories.
This item is also open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Public hearing is closed. Commissioners,
Motion for approval of staff recommendation.
any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 3.
Item 3 has been withdrawn. There is no action that the board needs to take. It was just withdrawn after we had already advertised, so it was kept on the agenda. Item 4 is Camelot and Northbrook subdivision, Phase 2A, which is 32 lots. So this is a final plat approval This is final plat approval for 32 lots adjacent to Sherwood Drive and then also Northbrook Drive. This piece is zoned R4. The applicant is Blake Rice with Barrett Simpson representing SMB Land LLC. The 32 lots meet the minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet in the R4 zone with the 60-foot lot width. Let me show you this. Lot 79A is 4.6 acres. That's this piece here to be used as open space. The remaining lots are single-family and located on 15.87 acres. Those lots range in size from 8,800 square feet to 44,948 square feet, the largest one being, I believe, down here, close to an acre. Lots 1 and 2 have a 20-foot sanitary sewer easement, and then there's some other easements that are shown on here. Lots 21 and 22 have a 15-foot landscape buffer shown up here on the top part here. The lots meet the minimum requirements for the R4 zone, and we recommend final plat approval, subject to the installation of sidewalks on at least one side of all streets, and adding a note to 79A1 stating that it is open space and who will be responsible for that property. The engineering department has noted that this plat does meet the requirements for final plat. We do have the bonds and the infrastructure is all in. They will have to provide or they have provided performance and maintenance bonds. I believe we are still waiting for some minor little items, but we will hold those hold the signatures of the plat until those have been completed. Opelika Utilities Board notes that the water service is accessible to this subdivision by a water main in the right-of-way of Sherwood Drive. New water improvements have been installed, tested, and accepted by the Utilities Department. And the Power Service Department notes that this is in their territory.
This
Again, the
item
applicant
is not open for a public hearing. Commissioners, need a motion.
just final.
Final.
I'm sorry, move final plat approval. Staff recommendation.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 5.
Item 5 is Trillium Subdivision Phase 2E. This is also a request for final plat approval. This property is accessed from Violet Lane in the other extensions of Trillium Subdivision. The applicant here is Blake Rice with Barrett Simpson representing Stone Martin. The property is currently undeveloped, although they have installed the roadway systems, and is zoned R2. The applicant is requesting final plat approval for 8 lots. Again, these lots can be accessed both from India Road down here through the existing subdivision, and then also from Rocky Brook Road through both through Violet Lane, which is part of the Trillium neighborhood. The lots here, and here's a better view of that. The lots range in size from 16,940 square feet to 13.40 acres, and of course the large one is this open space that runs through the entire development. The lots meet all the requirements for the minimum requirements for the R2 zone, and we do recommend final plat approval subject to the following: that they install sidewalks on at least one side of all streets, and they add a note to lot 107A 1A-1 stating that it is open space and who will be responsible for the maintenance of that. The engineering department notes that the comments have been addressed, and engineering department has inspected the construction and testing of the infrastructure. They have submitted bonds for this, both performance and maintenance bonds. Again, we are awaiting some minor details before we sign off the certificate of completion, but they do recommend final plat approval for this plat. The Utilities Board notes that water service is accessible to this subdivision in the right-of-way of Violet Lane, and new improvements have been installed, tested, and accepted by the Opelika Utilities Board. Opelika Power Services notes that this is in their territory. And
This
again-
item does not have a public hearing either, Commissioners.
Motion for approval with staff recommendation. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 6.
Yes, sir. We move to the conditional use section of the agenda. The first item on conditional use is a request that you saw last month. This is a request for Colonial Arms duplexes. This is 5 duplexes for 10 units. Excuse me. This is located at 802 North Long Street. The applicant is Thomas Johnson for Metro Properties Incorporated. And currently, this property had a small building on it, but is currently vacant. And the building has been removed in the R4 zone. Again, this one is familiar to you because you saw it last month. They had asked to put 6 duplexes for 12 units on this property, which would have required a density bonus from the Planning Commission. Having not seen another design, staff thought that 8 units, or four duplexes with 8 units might be better served to fit on the property. And so they were approved for 4 units based on your last meeting. They've since come back after some discussions and shown a plan that shows 5 units, 5 buildings, excuse me, with 10 units on it. And you'll see an image below that shows what they are proposed to look like, made out of hardy board or a similar material like that. After looking at the proposal, we feel that the units do fit on here without being too close together. And so we've made a recommendation for a amended conditional use approval for this, subject to the following: that they meet the 20-foot minimum spacing requirements between the buildings, and it appears that they do meet those all here. The landscape regulations include a residential buffer yard between the duplexes and the single-family lots, both the ones to the kind of southwest here, and then there's a small section here to the north. This site plan notes that the dumpster will be shared with Colonial Arms Apartments, and if the dumpster is visible from North Long Street, install an opaque fence, excuse me, gate, excuse me, gated, so the dumpster is not being able to be seen from outside the enclosure. Install landscape shrubs screening to the north, south, and west of the dumpster to screen it. The engineering department notes that the developer will be required to submit a site plan and grading plan for the drainage, utility, and post-construction detention. And once this meets approval, they will issue a land disturbance permit. The engineering department has no other comments or concerns with the proposal and recommends conditional use. The Utilities Board notes that water service is accessible to this subdivision through the water main of Renfro Avenue. And this property is inside the Opelika Power Services territory. Here's a landscape plan showing you kind of what they propose to screen those property lines.
This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners.
Make a motion for conditional use, please.
Second.
Any discussion?
Did I hear you say what the proposed material?
It would be fiber cement board, like hardy board or something along those lines. What is used for many houses today instead of vinyl or metal siding. It's more of a fiber cement siding, so it looks kind of more natural, more like wood.
But not masonite.
No, sir, I don't believe that would be the same material. This is a lap siding, I believe, that they've proposed in here.
Is the representative here? Could you plan on using anything like masonite?
Well, that's been my ignorance.
Sir?
I'm the site designer, so I don't, the hardy plank, it's a nice product. It looks like a wood finish.
That'd be great.
I agree, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 7.
Excuse me. Item 7 is a request for townhouses in the C2 zone. The applicant is Andrew Holder, and he's requesting again a mixed-use development on a currently undeveloped property that's just over an acre. And I'll go through some photos to kind of show you what it looks like. This is probably the best site plan that's seen here. This shows a professional office building located along the frontage here, parking behind that, and then 8 townhouses located behind those, backing up to the railroad track. The total development is about 4,600 square feet or 1.06 acres. It is located in the Geneva Street Historic District, and this has been before the Historic Preservation Commission. They're proposing a 3,380 square foot office building, which looks somewhat like this. That's what's been proposed and been approved by Historic Preservation. And then, as you'll notice, parking behind that with a townhouse development along the rear section. This is just north of the former Craftmasters building and the current Reynolds Outdoors. The site would have a 24-foot wide access drive that would go to the rear, where you would have the townhouses, which is what is under the conditional use review right now. Each of these units would be approximately 1,458 square feet with 2-car garage. They would be 3 stories with a garage on the bottom, living space on the main floor, and then the bedrooms located on the 3rd floor. Here you see the site plans for the offices, but what may be more important is, so this is the garage on the base, the bottom floor. They would have, again, living space, kitchen on the 2nd floor, and then the bedrooms located on the 3rd floor. These are 3-bedroom apartments with 2.5 baths. Because this is next to single-family residential, there would be some buffer yards, which we are recommending be installed as well. And they are showing those, excuse me, buffers. Yes, excuse me. There would also be fencing that they proposed going around the entirety of the property from the office building back, so it'd go along the sides, or curve around the railroad tracks, and then along the south side as well. We do recommend approval of this, subject to the following: that all the elevations material be consistent with those approved by the Historic Preservation Commission. All service utilities should be underground. Parking lot landscaping buffers should be met or exceeded. Residential buffers should be required to the south, north, and west property lines. Any refuse bins should be screened with materials that complement the building. The engineering department notes that the developer will be required to submit a site construction grading plan. Once that is submitted and approved, they'll issue a land disturbance permit, and they have no other comments concerning this proposal, recommending conditional use. The Opelika Utilities Board reports that water service is accessible to this through a water main in the right-of-way of Geneva Street. All water meter vaults will need to be placed in the right-of-way of Geneva Street. And then the subdivision is in the Opelika Power Services territory.
This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Come on up.
Excuse me.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica
If you
Rosar.
would, please, ma'am, state your name
Yes.
and address. I'm sorry.
My name is Jessica Rosar. I am at 802 Geneva Street, which would be the north side of the
Excuse
property.
me, ma'am, is your mic on? There's a little round thing, button there to push. That's green
Okay.
now. Thank you.
What about now? No, I don't believe it's plugged in then. I'm not getting this thing.
There we go.
So I'll lean in. Is that better?
No, not much.
I think you have to get closer to the mic.
Well, he said it's this. Does this work? There we go.
That's better.
Okay, I hear myself. My name is Jessica Rosar. I am at 802 Geneva Street. I would be the property to the north of the development in question. As a neighbor, I just have concerns that I would like to be considered, and maybe my words won't have effect on this approval, but I would like. Yes, sir.
Have your attention.
Yes.
Ma'am, if you would, behind, would you step back a little bit? And you
Okay.
go ahead and take your mask off, so we can understand what you're saying.
Okay. My concerns are as follows. Mainly, I also own an acre lot that continues from Geneva Street to the railroad. And now that there's proposed 3-story residential units, supposedly they're townhomes, but who's to say they're not going to be transient type residents? So I'm concerned about now we have this established neighborhood with established neighbors and a sense of comfort and safety. And now with this 3-story structure overlooking our properties, there's a few of us here that there's actually 3 property lines abutting this. Anyway, now our once private properties are going to be kind of, in my own words, under scrutiny of strangers at any given moment of the day. We have the business up front. So during business hours, there's strangers. Then in the evening hours, there's strangers. And their beautiful view with their little balcony happens to be my once upon a time private backyard. So it's disheartening to me to accept that. But I also understand that it isn't about me completely. But also, if they're covering this entire lot with building structure and pavement, where does that water go? Is there no impervious surface ratio guidelines? I didn't see anything on the planning ordinance document that's available on the website, but I was wondering if maybe that hasn't been updated. But the way that the lay of the land is, my property is rather low, and so I'm already gathering water runoff, and I'm concerned that I'm just going to get flooded when this lot covered in pavement and foundation is going to just run off in our direction. And I think my neighbors have that same concern. And then he says he's going to build a fence, and that would be, I mean, I guess, I don't know if he's required to, but I'm concerned with if someone's house, townhouse is fronting into my property, is that going to invite people to use my property at their leisure, pets and things like that, trespassing? And yeah, those are a few of my concerns. This microphone is very sensitive. Also, I know this is not a concern of planning. This was already approved by the historic preservation, but I strongly disagree that this fits into the narrative of the historic district. This is a farmhouse, and these townhouses in the back certainly are modern, and maybe these accessory buildings aren't to subject of the historic preservation aesthetics. Maybe they're not under the guidelines of that, but it's a completely different scale and density to what our neighborhood currently has. And my neighbors and I have gathered together, and we all have concern about if we let this come to our neighborhood, which property is going next? What's the future of our historic homes that we've all worked so hard to maintain and been under scrutiny? My time's up.
I'm sorry, but your time is
Yes.
up now. If you want something specific to questions on, Matt, did you respond to it?
I did copy down some of her questions. I can wait if you'd like until the other,
Okay, that's right.
neighbors want to
Ma'am?
speak as well.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Danielle Roods, and I am the property owner of 706 Geneva Street. We will also be butted up right next against this complex that they're going to build. Jessica has actually already addressed our major concerns. I'm just here to say that I agree with her. We're not looking forward to this construction taking place, and I'm not 100% comfortable with a business being 10 feet off my property line. That's really all I have to say. So I appreciate your time, and thank you for considering this.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Matt, would you please, you want to speak?
Hello, my name is Jed Williams. I'm the husband of Danielle. We live at 704 Geneva Street. She said 706. Is it working? I can probably talk. All right, I had the same concerns. Our house was built in 1930. When they start bringing all this equipment in, moving stuff, what's it gonna do to my house? The structural integrity. Plaster on my walls, is it gonna be falling off? I have single pane lead windows. Who's breaking them? Who's gonna pay for them when they break? Plus, she said the water runoff. Major concern for the foundation of my house. You can tell I'm a little nervous. One house, if somebody bought the lot and built one house, sure. I'm getting a 2-story office building. I'm getting 3 8-story townhomes. So, that being said, I appreciate everybody coming out to help.
Thank
You're welcome.
you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
The architect is here.
Go ahead. Yeah, come on up.
My name is Lisa Bentley, and we live at 702 Geneva Street. And I'm concerned about the extra traffic and the people trying to go in and out all day. The traffic's bad enough on Geneva Street. And we've lived here for 13 years, and we moved here from Auburn because the traffic was so bad in Auburn. And now I feel like, this is just gonna increase the traffic that much more. And our house was built in 1929 by my grandparents. And when they have been working on the road, the windows shake, the tiles shake, and it's just gonna be so much more noise and traffic. I'm opposed to it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Philip Preston, 610 Geneva Street. I'm on the other end of the block. My main concern is, as excited as we are that Southside is now getting attention as a happening place that it hasn't for all the 4 decades that we've lived in our house. The scale of this project is a little daunting. That's a lot of stuff on one narrow lot, and it does not conform to the sense of the rest of the street in terms of the space between the houses, the livability we're concerned about. So, having a young construction concern coming in the neighborhood and validating that Southside is a great place to live, the new library, we're excited there to have young people strolling their kids and walking their dogs and moving into places that we weren't sure we'd ever see. That part is nice, but the scale of this thing, I'm afraid, is going to overwhelm the rest of the street, and particularly with the two adjacent properties, seriously affect that livability of both of those houses, and that's the domino effect right on the street on both sides. So that's my concern. I don't know what could be done to address that, but it's a lot of stuff on 1 acre lot, and not in connection to anything else on that street.
I'm Patricia Concy, and my husband Bud and I live at 609 Geneva, right on the corner. And I want to echo what the other neighbors have said, specifically around the traffic pattern, and what that's going to do to increase traffic on our street. I know we have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter. She cannot go outside of our house, not in the side yard, and now with the new library, not the backyard. So I'd like to know what the traffic flow and the plan for that is, so that we can not only ensure the safety of everyone's pets and children, but also ensure what everyone cares about, which is our property value. Also, I would like to add, we're new to the area. Maybe this was the common announcements, and we just don't know the resources to look for these, but none of us that gathered together had any idea that this had been on the floor and already approved. So that's a concern. Transparency is what we would like. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Man, who did you, the architect?
I believe the architect was here. I don't know if they wanted to.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Ken Punzarelli with LAI Design Group. So Matt, if you would just kind of roll through the slideshow in a second. So the inspiration for the architecture that we selected was a more modern, bent on farmhouse style. There are some homes along the street that do have bungalow and or farmhouse-esque. Then there are some others that are decidedly different styles. And so that's how that was arrived at. If you could go to the site plan, Matt. Yeah, if you just stay with the PowerPoint presentation, that'd be great. Just go back to the original deck.
Okay.
Okay, so if you go in. One more, great. Okay, so couple of things that I've heard, and they're all very real concerns, and I want to address each and every one of them because they're important to us as well. So number one, the scale of the office building is similar to the scale of the house on the bottom of the screen, height-wise of the building. The townhomes that are in the back, they overlook effectively a heavily forested backyard. But that notwithstanding, while this is not a complete site plan, it is our intention to do a very detailed landscape plan for submittal to the city and work with the neighbors on screening and privacy issues. When it comes to stormwater drainage, it is illegal for anyone in new development to drain water in a post-development condition on anybody else's property. So we would be working very closely with our civil engineer to develop a stormwater management plan for this property so that we do not flood any adjacent properties. Regarding visual and screening, that would come hand in hand with landscape and tree selection. So we would select plants that are predominantly evergreen in areas where people are concerned about screening. So that would be one way to handle that. Secondarily, somebody mentioned that these were going to be apartments, and they are not apartments. They are townhomes, and they will be sold as fee simple townhomes, so they will be owner occupied. Let's see what else. There's about 26% landscape area on this property. As far as the office building goes, it really only has about 4 offices in it, so it's just a professional office. It's not high traffic like a retail type of situation. I think those were the primary concerns that I had heard. We have not done a traffic study. That will be forthcoming with a formal site plan and all of that. We'll make sure that any mitigation necessary will be addressed at that time. Can I answer any questions for the Planning Commission or planning staff or city attorney?
Thank you. Is that all? Matt, you have
I guess lastly, I would point back to the zoning, is that the zoning allows up to 75-foot building height in this area. We are nowhere near that. The density allowed in this area allows up to 16 units to the acre. We're at 7.6. So from a density and urban growth perspective, we're in compliance with the land use and zoning ordinances that are that overlay this property. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Was any consideration given to the fact that that would be the only 3-story building in the immediate area, and the overall appearance in effect to the area?
Well,
as opposed to doing 2-story, maybe a few less units, but 2-story?
yeah, well, the fact that they are back by the railroad and they're more than halfway behind the right-of-way, and so that's why when we looked at that, we didn't think that that would be an overarching concern, as well as the fact that we'll crank up the density of landscape plant material that'll be required for an actual site plan submittal. So that's why we thought.
It's a beautiful presentation, what you did, but it depends a lot on the vegetation that you're putting in. For lack of a better word, it disguises a building.
Sure.
And I'm just concerned what it would do to the overall appearance of that area, though we certainly are delighted to see development going on.
Well, I can assure you that we will maximize the landscape screening on this property so that people are comfortable with that, and we'll work very closely with planning staff and public works as well. Thank you.
Matt, are there any further questions from the commissioners? Matt, would you please address any questions to this gentleman and the lady that was up there before?
Yes, sir. We do, as Mr. Pincerelli, had mentioned, we do require that sites over an acre, which this is, have detention, and so they should not create more water runoff than post than pre-construction. As far as the historic preservation aspect, this did go to the Historic Preservation Commission about 2 weeks ago. And there they do look at size and scale and character, and that was one thing that I think they looked at as well, is whether or not they look at both the front building and the rear building. They do place more emphasis on the building fronting along the street, so the Geneva Street building. There again, the thing that they also look at is not necessarily something trying to mimic a old building, but something that complements the neighborhood there. And so that's why I think the building along the frontage does not necessarily have a bungalow style or a extremely historic style. It tries to mimic some of the features, but not necessarily look like an old structure. As to traffic, this, we will look at that with our engineering department. With four office units and 8 townhouses, it typically would not meet any sort of minimum standard we would require a traffic study on, because it does not produce enough traffic to really impact the overall Geneva Street, which is considered a collector street, I believe. And then finally, as to the use, I know there was some concern about the office and commercial uses, and those uses, because this and many of the properties through here are zoned C2 or commercial. That's why many of the existing historic homes can be used for things like restaurants or office buildings or things like that. So the office use itself is permitted by right. It's the townhouse use behind it that is conditional, and so that's what's under the purview of the commission today, whether or not that use is in compliance with the zoning ordinance or in character with the surrounding the neighbors and or create impacts there.
Do you, ma'am, do you have any comments you'd like to respond? I want to give you the opportunity. You've heard what Matt has responded to your questions.
I'll stand here. My neighbors asked, I think really the driving question is, has there been a former hearing regarding this property in front of Planning Commission? And as one of my other neighbors has expressed concern, should we not have been notified prior to this? The reason we're here today is because we did digging and made phone calls to find out that there was going to be this hearing. Some of us were notified about the historic preservation meeting, but it was way after the fact. We got the letter after it happened due to the mail circumstances. So, some of our concerns we should have taken up with them, but we didn't have the opportunity. So, like I said, my neighbor is asking, where is the transparency and where should our expectations lie on receiving information about something so drastic changing to our neighborhood and our properties and owning it?
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any further discussion from the public?
Well, I'll say one thing.
In response to what Mr.
Yeah,
Matt said?
yeah, there are no other apartments in our neighborhood. These are all single-family homes instead of just one small house. So that's why I don't think it's.
Thank you. If there's no one else, public hearing is now closed. Commissioners. Need a motion.
Make a motion, for conditional use.
Need a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
More than a discussion.
Okay.
As far as I know, this is the first time that I have seen anything about this project. We have not had any previous meetings, have we, Matt?
No, sir, we have not. This is only came about, I think, this project only came about within the last month or so. And so this is the first planning commission meeting that this has been on.
And I believe someone said that they thought that it had already been approved. It has not been approved by
But
anyone other than the Historic Preservation.
It did go to the Historic Preservation Commission, and even there, neither of these actual meetings require by state code to send any sort of notification, either the conditional use or the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. We did decide, because this was a substantial change, to send letters to the Historic Preservation Commission meeting at that location, and did so, but it does appear that some of the people got their mail well after the fact due to either construction or issues with the Postal Service. We did have one person who did come to the Historic Preservation meeting who did receive a letter there, and I don't believe they spoke at that meeting. But.
Matt, could you put the street on back up there? On the picture of the street where it goes in towards the railroad track.
This one?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I know. Is it gonna require, and maybe you can answer this, is it gonna require a fire truck to go all the way to the dead end and then back up into the parking space?
So,
Is that what it does?
So Mr. Chairman, this actually does meet the maximum depth allowed by fire code, and the additional item is that there is no striped island in the center of the parking lot. If you look at the site plan, there's no striped island there, so that a fire truck could also do a K-turn there if necessary, but that does meet the maximum length allowed. We have talked with the fire department on that.
So, yes, sir. So they have been in discussion with the fire department. And it sounds like they are working through the issues related to that, and feel that if they're granted permission,
Will that come up in the development?
that would come up during building plan review.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
sir.
fine. As long as that comes up, then that's fine.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just a question. Is there a single-family homes on either side of this piece of property?
Yes, I believe so. There's, I believe both of these on each side are single family. Beyond that, you have an old duplex here, which I believe is vacant now. And then you have the Craftmaster building, and then Reynolds over here. Across the street, you have a few little smaller single family and some kind of out units, I believe. And then you have what was Whispering Oaks across the street, which has been converted back to a single-family home again. And I believe it's been quite a few uses over its history. But both properties, to your point, is both properties to the north and south are single-family currently.
The 3 stories concerns me greatly as to whether it's an asset or liability to the area.
And I think that was something we looked at as well. You can see it a little bit on here. So you have the main office building here, and you see how it lines up pretty much in the same line with the 2 single-family homes here. Excuse me. I think what the architect has mentioned is currently the rear portions of both these properties are largely undeveloped. at their owner's desire. And so the current plan would show them looking out to those undeveloped areas. Now, of course, the people who own those properties could either develop them to put something under there allowed in the C2 zone, or they could leave it natural and use it as a backyard for their single-family residence. So there is definitely some different uses going on between these properties.
How close is this to El Rodeo and the Washateria and Reynolds and the
So
old empty Craftmaster
this is
warehouses?
the property here that we're speaking of. You'll see the Craftmasters building is here, and then the other commercial buildings are kind of would be right down in here. And then the city, or the former warehouse, I think, is kind of right across the street here. This is kind of at the edge, transitioning from what was traditionally a single-family area to more of the commercial area.
Matt, the homes that are shown on this particular drawing in the top right-hand corner, those all front on Martin Luther King, is that correct?
These homes here? Yes, sir.
R3?
Yes, sir. Those all front on, it's actually east, that small little street that comes out right before Martin Luther King, but it's all part of the same right-of-way there. They look like they come out right across the street from the police department on Martin Luther King here.
I didn't believe the third story, this would be more, a two-story building,
Yeah.
much more conducive.
If I might address that,
Consider this duplexes.
Well, you know, I don't have any problem with 3 stories. I mean, my gosh, you got all that old vacant Craftmaster stuff just 100 yards from there, and
Yeah.
anything that's done there, I think is gonna be an improvement,
I do
in my
too.
opinion.
I mean, could he have addressed the two-story versus three-story that he wants to?
so a typical two-story house is allowed to go up to 35 feet. These townhomes are 35 feet, 8 inches to the ridge. And normally when building height is measured according to the residential building code, it goes to the midpoint of a gable. So if you go to the elevations of this, not this, I want that, yes. So to the ridge, you can see that the roof is low. If you look at that rendering, that it's low bungalow style. So this has got, a blend of bungalow / farmhouse style blended in here. But this is as high as you would be allowed to do with a 2-story townhome. So just saying from a proportion. And then what we've done to layer the elevation is, you'll notice we've broken up the elevation with different bays, siding style, and window detailing, which fits in with the historic preservation desires and guidelines.
Commissioners, y'all have any more questions, sir? Come to the podium and, I think has everybody responded, he's responded back and y'all talked and communicated, right? Let's move on.
You got a motion
Thank
on
you.
the floor. Over here,
Just a process question. I think the neighborhood feels a little blindsided. It was, am I being able to be heard?
There's a smaller microphone.
Oh, that's what I need, okay. I'm sorry. Process, we're just a little caught off guard. I didn't know until I got here today, and when Matt mentioned a minute ago, that the point of this meeting was the conditional use granted for the apartments. We've been able to find little information about the whole project, and I wasn't sure if this sort of procedure is required to have notice like signs at the property in advance before the meeting. We didn't know, but it's been a lot to process in just a very few days. So that's not to say that there's ultimate objection to this, but it's just happening so fast, and there's no way this is not going to have a major impact on the street. So it would have been nice to have some room to breathe with this, and have some input into it.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a job to do up here, and you're coming back to the podium. You need to respond to Mr. Mosley's answer. Now, if you would, keep it to that discussion, please.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, well, I mean, Mike, I only asked the question because you're about to vote on something, and I'm not clear what it is you're voting
I
on.
understand.
So, just to clarify, commissioners and visitors, this is, the conditional use request is for the townhome section only. The office use and many other commercial uses would be allowed by right at this location. The townhouse, any multifamily, or even duplexes would be a conditional use at this location. Under our current guidelines and under state law, we are required to put notice in the newspaper, and we do put it on our website for projects of this nature. We do not send out letters typically or put a sign up for this type of action by the Planning Commission. Based on our current guideline, like I said, our current bylaws and guidelines and state legislative requirements.
Commissioners, is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 8.
Yes, sir. Item 8 is a request for a conditional use approval. This is a request for twin home townhomes located on the northeast side of Waverly Place. The applicant is David Slocum with Pinnacle Design Group for Waverly Park Partners LLC. The current zoning is R3, and the property is undeveloped. The applicant is proposing to construct 7 residential buildings with 14 units in the R3 zone. This is located off Waverly Place, or off Waverly Parkway. The total area of this property is, I believe, 33 acres. You may remember about a year and a half ago, there was a request to put a single-family development in this neighborhood of 40 single-family homes with 1 large open space lot. They've since come back and revised that, I think based on the topography and some issues with construction, to have still a single street, but with 7 individual units, or 7 individual buildings, each with 2 units. The density allowed under R3 is 3.5 units per acre. The proposed density of this would be 0.41 units an acre, well below the allowed density for the area. They have combined all of these structures within a small geographic area, I believe based on the developability of this section, and then have said that the remaining areas will be remain wooded. There is a conceptual site plan that you've seen, and it shows just some plantings along the street and then along the cul-de-sac. Because this is a twin home duplex or twin home townhome type product, we would require a full landscape plan, which will be reviewed based on those requirements for the developable area. This does appear to meet most of those requirements, so. We do recommend approval of this, subject to the following conditions: that the lots remain undeveloped, or the remaining undeveloped property shall be placed in common or open space lots. The plat shall note who will maintain this lot and limit future development. Sidewalks should be placed on one side of the street. All utilities shall be required to be underground, and a proposed elevation should be substantially match the submitted elevations, including the materials, but the building should alternate facade features, massing, entries or other elements to break up monotonous row-type housing. This is a submitted elevation that they expect the buildings to kind of look like. So it's not what we typically think of when we think of a duplex or townhome. It's something that's kind of got a little bit more variety between the two, so you don't mirror image the two units. The engineering department notes that the developer will submit a site and infrastructure construction grading plan. And once that is approved, they will issue a land disturbance permit. Engineering has no concerns or comments with the proposal and recommend conditional use. Utilities Board recommends or notes that water service is available through the right-of-way of Waverly Place, and this is inside Opelika Power Services territory. I would note that we have had quite a bit of conversation regarding that from multiple people in the Waverly Place, Woodridge area. I think we forwarded a couple emails to you from the Waverly Place neighborhood. I'll read one just real quickly. To whom it may concern, we, the undersigned, formally request the halt of the proposed new housing development in Waverly Park neighborhood. We are 40-unit condominiums with 6 individual garden homes. Our residents consist of mainly senior citizens, intellectually challenged, physically challenged, and retirees. We have had at least 3 persons using walkers in addition to utilizing home health care to assist with the daily living activities. Our residents must physically cross the Waverly Park Drive in order to have access to their mailboxes, clubhouse, and trash container. This would disrupt the seniors' residents' daily way of life. Also, an increase of traffic by proposed increase in housing will create dangerous problems for our residents. In addition to an already heavily traffic flow off Waverly Parkway, any new additional housing would make the area more congested to anyone attempting to leave the neighborhood. We we appreciate your assistance in this manner. Respectfully, the Waverly Park Condos Association and homeowners. And it lists their names and about, it looks like 12 other people. And then there's quite a few people who have signed on these various petitions. I will say that we did receive some comments from a Mark Mitchell who had some concerns with it. It's my understanding the applicant met with the homeowners association there and talked through some items. Mr. Mitchell came back and later said that he changed his opinion and was now in favor of the development after meeting with the developer. But I will pass these out to you all so that you can look at the actual items, and we'll enter these into the minutes.
You're just gonna pass that around?
Yes, sir.
All right, great.
But as I said, we have, after reviewing it, recommended conditional use approval, and I believe the applicant is represented here today as well.
You ready to open for a public?
Yes, sir.
hearing? This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Come on, Jackie.
Would you
Go
like
ahead.
to speak?
Come to the podium, please. There you go. David.
My objection is the traffic. I think the commission is aware that this is a dead-end street. We've already got approximately 120 vehicles over there. If you add another 14 residences, that's probably another 28 cars. This is already a congested area for the street and the people over there. So my request is not to pass this. I don't have any objections to the houses back there. My objection is the traffic that it's going to do. We're already overburdened with traffic out there, and you add more to it, and you put us in a worse shape. I'm sure all of you are aware of how congested Waverly Parkway is already. We're right there at West Forest School. That's a problem. I understand the hospital has just bought some property over there. that's going to add to it. And I know that we can't do anything about that, but I am requesting that you consider the people that live in Waverly Park and Woodridge, and that it's pretty much a senior community right now. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners. I need a motion.
Make a motion of positive recommendation to the city council.
No, this would just be approval.
I'm sorry.
Has it been
Make a
seconded,
motion for approval.
or has it been finished?
Conditional use approval. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Item 9 is a amendment to the future land use plan and rezoning of 4 acres located at 1201 South Fox Run Parkway. The applicant is John E. Cunningham. Currently, the property is zoned C2 with a gateway corridor primary overlay. The applicant is proposing to rezone it to C3 with gateway corridor primary overlay. This is the former site of the Harley-Davidson dealership. The future land use shows this as a light commercial land use category. And you'll notice here the zoning, you see the light pink is all C3, the dark red is I have that backwards. The light pink is all C2, the dark pink is all C3. And so they would be requesting similar zoning to the dealerships across the street or to the property closer to the corner of Columbus Parkway and I-85, Fox Run Parkway. The properties through here, like I said, all have, in the red, all have a general commercial classification for future land use. The properties in the pink all have a light commercial classification. It's my understanding that because the Harley-Davidson largely had all of their motorcycles and vehicles located inside and not on the outside, they weren't required to rezone it because it was inside sales, basically, instead of outside sales. It's my understanding the new, or the property owner now would like to potentially rezone it for a RV camper or RV service center at the same location, which would have some outside sales, which would require the property to be rezoned and the future land use to be changed accordingly. Staff does recommend approval of or positive recommendation for the rezoning from C2 Gateway Corridor Primary to C3 Gateway Corridor Primary, and also a change in the future land use from light commercial to general commercial. Engineering Department has no comments or concerns with the change and recommends approval, and both the Opelika Utilities Board and Opelika Power Services have no report.
This item is open for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, I'd like a motion on the amendments to the 2030 comprehensive plan first.
Is this a positive recommendation?
No, this would be a approval or denial.
Okay, I'll make a motion for approval.
Somebody second it?
I did.
Good, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Now, Commissioners, I would like a motion on the rezoning request.
This would be a recommendation.
Motion for a positive recommendation in City Council.
Second.
Second?
Chief McGarrett
I'm sorry.
seconded it.
All in favor? Any discussion first, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
That's all the
That
business we have
concludes,
before you.
the planning commission today. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved. Second.
Motion carries.
All right. Chief, you doing okay?
Yes, sir.
Good, so good.
Thank you. Matt?
How are you?
Matt?
I think Lewis was gonna try and drag it out to 9 o'clock, but
But Chief, I was sitting there and I saw your piece down there. I was like, yeah, he is the chief of police. I was thinking for a minute, like, yeah, he's the chief of police. That makes sense, right?
yeah.
We don't want to see no ordinary citizen, you know, sitting in a public building with a piece on his leg, you know, so something will be up with that.
It's like that old movie years ago where the judge stood up and threw his robe back and fired around and said, "Need I remind you, we're in a court of law."